lot of work to do, and again, I'm going to ask for your support come November 6th. And pretending that everything is fine is not going to fix the problems. We just have to be honest with ourselves. We can address them, and we're going to move forward as a community, as a one group. So, any questions?
Me.
Good morning. My question is regarding, we know that when Paul Tanaka was there was this thing about there was a gang in the sheriff's department among the sheriffs with these symbols that they had on them.
Yes.
And so I want to know, are you going to investigate the gang situation? And are you going to do something about the so-called investigating, I hate to call them bad because I was a teacher and everybody can be, reformed in some way. Bad cops, the bad sheriffs. Are you going to investigate the sheriffs? Because I know that the union that endorsed you doesn't want them to be investigated, but what are you going to do about it?
There's a lot that we need to do, but we need to be able to separate fact from fiction. Right now, every single patrol station in the sheriff's department has some form of a tattoo or a symbol. So does every police department, probably across the nation. Most fire stations have their own tattoo. Every branch of the military has a tattoo. The ink in of itself is not the issue. It's the behavior that is a concern. And we have to have a robust system to make sure we're monitoring the behavior of employees. And if there is some evidence of wrongdoing, we have to have an honest system to identify the situation and then separate those who need to be terminated. But right now, I have, in Jim McDonald's command staff, he has two individuals that have a tattoo that says OGCF, Original Gangster Chongo Fighter. That's part of his command staff. I have another member who is now supposedly going to be promoted to management staff who has a swastika tattoo. And the question is, why are they so prominently moving upwards in the command? So remember, the issue is the behavior associated with it. And that OGCF tattoo was part of the Viking tattoo, which was all the problem back in the 1980s, in fact, under Paul Tanaka. There was another symbol that you may not be aware of. It was a challenge coin. A challenge coin, it had a cigar symbol on it. And there was a special patio at Sheriff's headquarters in Monterey Park, and the only people who were allowed into that patio, it was built, by the way, by you all. You paid for it, you didn't know it, but you did pay for it. And even the employees of the department couldn't go unless you had the challenge coin, and that was issued by Paul Tanaka. But of course, you had to do a campaign contribution. Those people that are on that list that had that challenge coin are now Jim McDonald's command staff. And they were the one that were engaged in the pay-to-play practice that brought the whole organization into disrepute. So there's a lot of issues, and then these are behaviors now. It's not the possession. It's the behavior you have to work on.
Those people, that's what
we are going to investigate them for sure. However, when we investigate, we have to ensure due process. Just like when I arrest somebody or detain someone on the street and I'm investigating a crime, doing a preliminary investigation, I have to ensure that that individual has due process. He enjoys the liberties of the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. And my obligation is to make sure all of those are respected. But guess what? We have to offer the same opportunity, the same rights to the employees who are actually enforcing the law. We have to do both. And that's a delicate balancing act between holding people accountable and supporting what they're doing. And I'm going to do that as sheriff.
And I agree with you. I know there are a lot of tattoos, but the one I'm interested in is the one that has the gun that says I killed somebody.
That sounds like a confession to a crime. I would like to know more about that.
Hi, touch this thing. Okay, sir. My question is, the jail overload managed by private companies who make millions of dollars. Can you do something about it? What about the people, the ICE people that arrest the people of color and, separate families, create so much trouble? And of course, the jails keep piling up more and more people. So we need to clean that up. Will you be able to do it?
That is a very tall order. Let me give you an idea of what's going on in the jails right now.
Yes.
My opponent probably told, and not in this forum, in many forums, about use of force in the jails has gone down. In fact, he recites that as one of his, in his resume. I brought down the level of force. Well, reality is, ever since 2009, the amount of force used inside the jails dropped drastically. I was a watch commander at Linwood here at the Central Regional Detention Facility, and I saw personally a drop in force of 50% from 2011 to 2014. So when he shows up in 2014, the party was over, so to speak. The major changes that needed to be made to hold people accountable had already happened, and nothing changed from 2014 to 2018, except one very important thing. Now, violence of inmate on inmate is skyrocketing out of control. Violence of inmates against staff is skyrocketing out of control. You never hear the incumbent talk about that. Just 2 weeks ago, a female deputy, Twin Towers Correctional Facility, was assaulted viciously by an inmate. Her ear was bitten off. Her hair was torn off by the scalp.
Oh my God.
And the inmate was HIV and hepatitis C positive. That you don't hear of. You heard about the assault of the female custody assistant in the Lakewood Station Jail, only because a gun was introduced, the suspect was shot by the deputies, and that generated a lot of radio traffic, and then the press was aware, and it became a big dog and pony show. Fortunately, the CA is gonna heal properly, and she's on her mend. However, the psychological trauma of that is tough to overcome. Now imagine this newer assault. Last year alone, 3 deputies were shanked or stabbed by improvised weapon in the jail. 3 in 1 year. My entire career, this is how many times that happened. 0. McDonald's own admission, June of this year, 14 overdoses of drugs inside the jail system. You tell me how available are drugs inside the county jail if you can have multiple people overdosing? This is out of his own mouth. You know how many times I saw it in my time in the jails? 2 in the span of 7 years, and those were entry, coming in the front door. So they already had ingested the narcotics. So we have jails that are awash in violence, that are awash in drugs. We have organized crime in control of the jails now, taxing everyone that steps foot in the jails to not be beat up. If they want to have the assignment as a trustee, they have to pay a tax to organized crime. This is all under the nose of the McDonald administration. And you know what? That's not the jails that I'm accustomed to. We're not going to go back to the days where inmates were being assaulted and there was violence. But at the same time, that pendulum has to swing back to the middle where everyone is held accountable, and actually the sheriff's department controls the county jail, not organized crime. There's a long way to go. And I'm not even getting into actually the management of the jail itself in terms of its size. We have to find alternatives to incarceration for the mentally ill, for those that are dealing with drug addiction, and we can't use the revolving door of in and out of jail to solve these issues. And we're not going to dump billions and billions of dollars in building another big building. It's going to be another version of the Twin Towers that we built, 20 plus years ago, supposedly to fix the exact same thing. So let's end this merry-go-round.
Thank you.
Go.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to say I saw you Sunday morning before Meet the Press on Channel 4. I just said I saw you Sunday morning before Meet the Press on Channel 4, both you and the sheriff. I was very impressed. You got my vote. Anyway, my question is this. I'll make it brief. My concern is the drug trafficking through the port of Los Angeles, bringing fentanyl into this country from China. You can order it online. People can die from inhaling it, touching it. It's showing up now. They had 3 guys die a couple weeks ago. When they did the autopsy, fentanyl was mixed in with meth and cocaine. So evidently it's coming into Los Angeles now. It's lethal. It'll kill. In Ohio, that county in Ohio, it's the crossroads of fentanyl. People are dying like flies there. They can't keep enough opening in the morgue they have to build. It's terrible. It's scary. What are you going to do about the importation of fentanyl from China It's coming also, they ship it to Mexico, it's coming in through Mexico into California. What are you gonna do about that? I know the federal agency is also gonna be involved in this, but what are you gonna do about that?
Well, there's several things we can do, and recognize it's a large-scale problem. These are what you call wicked problems. There's tame problems that are big, however, you have an obvious solution to them that you can put it to work. Dust Bowl, Kansas, 1930s is a prime example of a tame problem. Wicked problem like this, homelessness, a lot more difficult. We're going to have a good, strong partnership with the federals, with the DEA. All these individuals are in charge, these agencies are in charge with international stuff. We have to have a strong partnership with the state people at the Department of Justice. They're narcotics folks. We have to have a very strong working relationship with all of the border counties, with our department, our narcotics crew. We need to have an experienced narcotic crew. We need to actually decentralize it. It was centralized under Paul Tanaka. And so all these patrol stations had their own narcotics crew with their own feelers in the local communities. They were pulled out and they were centralized. Once they did that, they lost contact with all their normal informants in the normal process. It was very successful back in those days. We're gonna get back the days to decentralizing our narcotics crews into the patrol stations so they work hand in hand with you in the community. And lastly, yes, and lastly, we're going to make sure all the field deputies have availability of the Narcan. I believe this is already being deployed. We're going to make sure everyone has availability that in case of overdoses, very often we get there prior to fire arriving, a lot of these overdoses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're up with the time's up. Maria Alice.
Okay. Let me,
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva, for giving us your wisdom and your knowledge.
oh, can I say one last thing?
Sure.
Very important. That I know my opponent assailed me about lack of experience. I know of a certain community organizer who went from being that to running the largest government agency in the world, the U.S. federal government. How did that work out? You tell me.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a big round of applause.